Hey there, let's get right to it. No dragging this out for watch time. You clicked because you want the truth, the single most common reason leaders fail. It's not because they're not smart. It's not because they don't work hard enough. It's not even because they don't care. It's because they fall into the leadership sinkhole. And that sinkhole, it's called a devastating lack of clarity. Well, let's back up for a second. Are you feeling like you're constantly drowning? Like your leadership life is just one giant game of whack-a-mole? You put out one fire and bam, 3 more pop up? That's not just you. That's a leadership epidemic. And so many leaders are redlining every day. Calendars jammed, inboxes overflowing, stuck in reactive mode. And before you know it, weeks and quarters vanish in a puff of urgent, unplanned tasks. Sound familiar? I know. Here's a stat that hurts. According to a Gallup survey, 75% of employees who leave their jobs say poor leadership is the reason. That's what they say. Employees leave their manager, not their job. And 71% aren't even convinced their leaders know what they're doing. Ouch. If your team feels checked out, if you feel like you're on the verge of burnout, chances are you've already got one foot in the sinkhole. Now here's where I'll confess. I've been there. I used to think leadership meant having all the answers, being in every meeting, solving every crisis. My style back then? Imagine Siri, but sassier and way less accurate. And if listening was a sport, I was the kid in right field picking dandelions while the ball sailed right over my head. My team didn't know if I was leading or just starring in a one-person show called The Ballad of Burnout. Let's call it what it is. Reactive leadership. Reactive leaders are always firefighting, always playing catch-up, meetings on top of meetings, making snap decisions, not because they're agile, but because they literally don't have time to think. And the world doesn't make this easier. There's geopolitical tensions, tech changes, supply chain chaos, you name it. It's like the universe is playing dodgeball and you're the only one standing there without a ball. Average leaders are in 17 meetings a week. Think about that, especially if they're booked for an hour. And many spend 75% of their time in meetings. No wonder you feel exhausted. And this has consequences. For you, burnout. A recent report found 82% of the workforce is at risk for this. Leadership burnout alone jumped from 52% to 56% in 1 year. And here's the kicker. 43% of organizations lost at least half of their leadership teams to burnout. And burnout isn't just being tired. It's emotional exhaustion, cynicism, and questioning your whole career choice. You know that moment when you're staring at your calendar wondering if you can fake a power outage? Yeah, that's the beginning of burnout. And for your team, well, burned out leaders create burned out teams. Not intentionally, of course, but the stress trickles down. Morale tanks, people disengage, turnover skyrockets. Teams under reactive leaders are 30% less efficient. And for your organization, it's brutal. Burnout costs U.S. companies up to $190 billion a year in healthcare alone. Add in turnover and lost productivity, and a 1,000-person company can easily bleed $5 million a year. That's not just inconvenient, it's actually pretty catastrophic. Let me give you a real-world example of what the sinkhole looks like and how clarity can pull you back. Back in the early 2000s, Lego, yes, the beloved toy company that you're probably vacuuming out parts of out of your carpet as we speak, was nearly collapsing. Sales were dropping nearly 30% year over year. They lost almost $1 billion in just a couple of years. Why? Because they lost clarity. Instead of focusing on their core, building imaginative, interlocking bricks, they chased every shiny idea. Theme parks, clothing lines, even Lego jewelry. And listen, if someone proposed to me with a Lego diamond, that relationship would be over faster than you can say, engagement brick. But here's the thing. Lego wasn't failing because they weren't innovative. They were failing because they were scattered. Without clarity, everything felt urgent. Every new venture looked exciting. But all it did was spread the company thinner and thinner. By 2004, Lego was on the edge of bankruptcy. That's what the leadership sinkhole does. At first, it looks like a few cracks. Then, the whole floor gives way. But then something changed. They hired a new CEO, and he did something revolutionary. He brought the company back to clarity. Here's what they did. Refocused on the core. They shut down distractions like theme parks and jewelry and asked one simple question. Does this strengthen the Lego brick? If not, it was gone. They simplified product lines. They'd exploded into thousands of sets. They cut nearly half, focusing only on what really worked. And they strengthened partnerships. Instead of chasing everything, they doubled down on smart licensing deals, like with Star Wars and Harry Potter, which turned into blockbuster hits. They also streamlined operations. They fixed supply chains, outsourced where needed, and stopped the bleeding. They also re-engaged their customers. They launched Lego Ideas, inviting fans to co-create new sets. And they clarified their North Star. Everything tied back to their mission, inspiring builders of tomorrow. The result? Lego went from near bankruptcy in 2003 to becoming the world's most profitable toy company just a decade later. Now, here's why this matters for you. If a global company with billions on the line can turn the battleship around with clarity, you absolutely can too. Changing your leadership approach might feel overwhelming, but it's not impossible. It's like steering a battleship in the ocean. It doesn't turn instantly, but with steady, intentional moves, it will. And when it does, the whole course changes. So what causes the sinkhole for leaders? It's not that leaders don't care. It's not that they don't try. It's that they don't have clarity. Clarity on their purpose, clarity on priorities, clarity on where they're going and why. Without clarity, everything feels urgent. Every crisis seems to demand your attention. And every email gets answered by midnight. You're managing by inbox instead of by intention. And eventually, you sink. Think of clarity like your leadership GPS. Without it, you're just wandering. Every traffic jam looks like the end of the world. Every detour feels like a disaster. But with clarity, you can actually say no to distractions because you know what you're saying yes to. You can delegate because you know what outcomes matter most. And you can empower your team because they also understand the destination. So how do you climb out of the sinkhole? Well, it starts with a critical shift, moving from reactive firefighting to proactive leadership. And you cannot be proactive without clarity, period. Here's what clarity-driven leadership looks like in practice. First, you communicate with context, not just commands. People know the why, not just the what. Next, you must build systems, not band-aids. You got to fix root causes and spend the time really getting to them. Don't just address symptoms. Of course, you must prioritize ruthlessly. This is what I call having ruthless precision. If everything's a priority, I can promise you, nothing is. Then you empower your team. Give them autonomy and ownership instead of hoarding decisions and actions. Delegate effectively. And of course, you have to schedule thinking time and reflection time because clarity doesn't happen in the margins between Zoom calls. You review and adapt. Clarity isn't one and done. It's a compass. You recalibrate constantly. I like to say we are meant to always be clarifying. And here's the fun part. Clarity actually makes you calmer. Proactive leaders are steadier, even in chaos. They're less panicked, less reactive. Their confidence stabilizes the whole team. Compare that to reactive leadership, where everyone's just waiting for the next crisis to explode. It's like the difference between a pilot calmly landing a plane in turbulence versus the guy who just grabbed the intercom and yelled, "Hey, does anyone know how to fly this thing?" So here's your actionable blueprint to start digging yourself out of the sinkhole. Radical self-reflection. Start there. Ask yourself, what are my core values? Where am I most reactive? What drains me? What throws me off balance? Next, define your North Star. Get crystal clear on what success looks like for the rest of this year, next year, maybe even 3 years if you can think that far in advance. And of course, you must master proactive planning. Block time for strategy and thinking, not just tasks. You can also do my favorite exercise, which is the 50 once exercise. This is one of the practices I have leaders I work with do to start getting clarity. You make a list of 50 things you want, and you narrow it down to your top 5. Those become your non-negotiables. I like to say you can have everything you want, you just can't have everything. And of course, empower your team. Delegate your outcomes, not just your tasks. Give resources. And then you must review regularly, weekly, monthly, quarterly. Are you on track? What needs recalibration? If you can take the time to do some of these steps, maybe not all of them, but some of them, here's what changes. You stop drowning in urgency and finally feel a sense of control. Your team gets more engaged, more creative, and way less stressed. Your organization stops bleeding money and starts executing on strategy. And you, my friend, you actually go home at night feeling like you made progress, not just survived the day. And of course, barriers will pop up. Busyness, fear of missing out, organizational cultures that reward firefighting. But clarity, that's your true shield. With clarity, you know when to say yes, you know when to say no, and when to close the laptop before it burns a permanent rectangle into your thigh. So here's my challenge to you, fearless leader. Pick one area of your leadership that feels overwhelmingly reactive right now. Block 30 minutes this week to reflect on it. Ask, What would clarity look like here? I'd love for you to share your takeaway in the comments. I read every one that gets posted, and your insight might be the rope someone else needs to climb out of the sinkhole. Hey, I don't have all the answers. Leadership doesn't have to feel like drowning. It doesn't have to feel like an endless game of whack-a-mole either. The sinkhole's real, but so is the ladder out. And that ladder is clarity. If you like this video, share it with somebody who may benefit from it. And of course, hit subscribe to get more great stuff on how to thrive in the 9 to 5 and beyond. Happy thriving!